Imagine a quiet afternoon at a roadside diner when the roar of motorcycles shatters the peace. A gang of rowdy bikers storms in, loud and full of swagger, targeting a lone woman sitting calmly at the counter. They think she's just another easy target until she stands up. What they don't realize is that this isn't an ordinary woman. She's a highly trained Marine with the skills and confidence to hold her own. The bikers' taunts turn into disbelief as the situation takes a dramatic turn no one expected. What happens next? Let's just say they picked on the wrong person. Stay tuned as we dive into this thrilling story of bravery, unexpected twists, and a powerful lesson about underestimating others. This is one encounter they'll never forget, and neither will you. The woman's calm demeanor didn't change as the bikers circled around her. One of them leaned in, flashing a grin full of arrogance. "You lost, sweetheart," he sneered while the others chuckled, enjoying the moment. She barely glanced at him before returning to her meal, her silence making their laughter grow louder. The leader, clearly annoyed by her indifference, slammed his hand on the counter, making plates rattle. "I'm talking to you," he barked, his tone shifting to something more menacing. Other diners watched nervously, holding their breath, unsure of what would happen next. But the woman remained unfazed. She slowly wiped her hands, pushed back her chair, and stood up, her gaze finally locking onto his. In that moment, something shifted. There was a quiet intensity in her eyes, one that hinted at experience and strength far beyond what her petite frame suggested. The bikers had no idea what they had just set into motion. The diner grew silent, the only sound the faint hum of the ceiling fan, as the woman locked eyes with the leader of the bikers. His smirk faltered for a split second, but pride kept him in place. "Think you're tough," he scoffed, puffing up his chest. The other bikers jeered behind him, their confidence feeding off his bravado. Meanwhile, the other patrons sat frozen, exchanging worried glances. An older man behind the counter instinctively reached for the phone, but the woman gave a subtle shake of her head. It was clear she didn't need anyone's help. She stepped forward, her boots heavy against the floor, her calm measured in every movement. "You don't want to do this," she said, her voice even and firm, the kind of voice that demanded attention. But they didn't back down. "Oh, I do asterisk," the leader growled, moving closer. He had no idea he was walking straight into a lesson he wouldn't soon forget. The air grew thick with tension as the leader squared his shoulders, a smug grin spreading across his face. His hand hovered near her arm, a final gesture of control. But before he could lay a finger on her, she moved, fast. In a blur of precision, her hand shot up, catching his wrist in an iron grip. The biker's eyes widened, his bravado cracking as he struggled against her unshakable hold. Guests rippled through the diner. The other bikers took a step forward, but her sharp, steady gaze froze them in place. She twisted the leader's arm just enough to make him wince without causing harm. "Still think this is funny?" she asked, her tone cool and controlled. He gritted his teeth, but fear flickered in his eyes. His friends exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to do next. They had underestimated her, and now they were caught in a moment of truth with nowhere to hide. Just as the leader strained to break free from her grip, the sound of sirens pierced the air, growing louder as red and blue lights flashed outside the diner. The bikers' heads snapped toward the window, panic flickering in their eyes. Someone had called the police after all. Relief washed over the patrons, but the woman didn't let go. She leaned in closer, her voice low and deliberate. "You'll leave now." The tension snapped like a wire pulled too tight as the bikers hesitated, their bravado crumbling. The man in the doorway, a tall, muscular Marine with a quiet but commanding presence, stepped forward without a word. His calm, steady gaze alone was enough to make the gang rethink every decision that led them here. The leader finally yanked his arm freed from the woman's grip, rubbing his wrist as he backed away. "This isn't over," he muttered, his voice lacking the conviction it had before. But she didn't flinch. "It already is," she replied firmly, her eyes never leaving his. With one last glance at the Marine standing guard, the bikers shuffled toward the door, their tough act dissolved into silence. The leader paused for a split second before disappearing into the night. As calm returned to the diner, the Marine looked at her and smiled. "Still handling things your way, I see." She smirked. "Always." The bikers' engines roared to life outside, fading into the distance as peace settled back over the diner. The other patrons slowly relaxed, murmuring their relief and exchanging nods of gratitude with the woman. She took her seat again, calm as ever, and resumed her meal as if nothing had happened. The Marine joined her, sitting quietly for a moment before speaking. "You've still got that fire," he said with a chuckle. She smiled. "Some things don't change." The diner owner approached, a fresh cup of coffee in hand. "That was impressive," he said. "Thank you. We owe you one." She waved him off with a casual shrug, just doing what needed to be done. Outside, the night air was still. The lesson was clear. Strength isn't always loud, and true power comes from knowing when and how to use it. The world has a way of reminding us, never judge a book by its cover.